Higher power. Well, get started.
Yep.
Call the February 11th, 2019 USD 350 Board of Education meeting to order. Welcome visitors in the audience. Any additions or changes to the agenda?
Yeah, I need to add a number 7 on the business items for activity account.
Okay.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. The board approved the agenda as amended. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried, 6-0. Consent agendas in front of you. Anything, Mr. Meyer?
One thing that's a little different than you might see in previous months, we had that CD that we have to account for in a different way. So page 29 is the bank reconciliation report. You'll see 2 lines there for our checking account and one for the CD. It's up here. And then we've added just the figures on the bottom, cash balance, and then the securities that are pledged to cover that, plus FDIC. We need to make sure that we have that total balance secured, so we'll show that to you every month.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
It's moved and seconded. The board approved the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried, 6-0. Any patron comments this evening? All right, move on to the business agenda. Item number 1, investment of idle funds.
Recall that a while back we did put out bids to see who would meet the state rate, which bank in town would meet the state rate, and SJN Bank was that winning bidder. So we need to add an additional amount into the CD. I think we could go up to 300,000, but since we're just diving back into this, tying up some of our liquid assets, we want to be conservative about that. So I'd recommend going $200,000, and we'll go 6 months. And we'll re-up it another 3 months probably at the end of that term, and then see where we're at there. Just kind of ladder it that way. So my recommendation is $200,000 for 6 months at the state rate, state municipal rate.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the investment of $200,000 in idle funds for 6 months with SJN Bank at the state municipal rate.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. The board approved the investment of $200,000 in idle funds for 6 months with SJN Bank at the state municipal rate. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried, 6-0. Item number 2, review of courses and curriculum.
This is an agenda item where we just kind of go over and get a feel for what things are offered during the day for our kids. And then if we need to look at any changes curricular-wise, we'll cover that in the coming months. But for elementary, all of our kids, kindergarten through 6th grade, get a half hour of PE and a half hour of music every day. They get art once a week. They have some computer time, depending on the grade level. They all get some computer time during the week, and then we have more of an emphasis on ELA, which is English Language Arts, for reading, spelling, writing, and then your math and science and social studies. The younger grades don't have a specific time for the most part for science or social studies. It's more integrated into the other learning. And then they all have some MTSS time, which is multi-tiered system of supports, where they have extra time to fill gaps, remediate, push some to excel, fill gaps for others if they need to. 5th and 6th grade use that more of an advisory, where you have time to make up work or get help from a teacher, or they talk with their teacher every week. So kind of a little guidance time there too. So, any questions about what our elementary kids are doing or what we offer those kids? And then junior high and high school, we'll go over all of the line schedule, but that's what it looks like. Our biochemistry is really biology, but it's part of that pathway. We added the environmental resources and wildlife a couple years ago. We've added robotics. We've added the AV production class. Anything you'd like to add?
We'll probably be looking at trying to add some type of new intermediate math course back in. I think that was there before and was taken out, depending on how our teaching situation turns out.
Real quick on that, it used to be about 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, there was, the high school kids could take a basic algebra and then an intermediate algebra, and then the third course would be algebra 1. So really, a kid could get all their math credits and really only take algebra 1 over the course of 3 years, and no geometry concepts or other math concepts. And so we did away with that transitional algebra, but we really need to fill that gap with a basic math that will have some algebra and some geometry and maybe some real world math to help fill that gap to get those kids graduated.
Okay. The only other thing I can think of right now on schedule is there's a chance, and I'll be talking to you about it more, might look at adjusting the requirement for the computer class that we offer. We have a full credit requirement, and that might be a little bit more than what some of our kids really need. Might reduce that to a half or something, so just something to be thinking about.
And we also added, just recently, the consumer and personal finance as a graduation requirement,
Right.
and it's a full credit. So we were kicking around the other day, maybe making both of those a half a credit and give kids more choices of what they want to take.
More choices for their electives.
Right. So I think it's important that they have that, but maybe not quite full 2 years for all that. 7th grade, they have art and computers are their electives. They have music and PE every day. They have band.
It's every other day.
Every other day.
And Kristen is really glad.
And then the 8th grade, they do a semester of shop and a semester of facts or home ec. So those are their electives. Any questions or things we ought to be looking at there?
Anything, anybody?
The health and PE for the 9th graders, they pretty much can't do band then, right?
Yeah, band is first hour also.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
I
so
see.
right now we have that both hours. And they have health one semester and PE the next semester or
Okay.
vice versa.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are a few conflicts with band, like the college algebra, that when we redo the schedule, I'd like to try to avoid so that we don't take away from our band program for some of those upper level classes. But we'll see what we can do.
We've had a few that have had to take, they go to junior high band for during the day because they couldn't make it work. But yeah, the more we can avoid things like that, the better off.
Okay. Thank you. Move on to item number 3, the calendar.
I'm pretty much ready to offer a calendar up for approval, but I want to make sure we get some input from our site council, and that meeting's this week. So it's not going to hurt to put this off for another month, just to make sure we're not missing anything. So this is what our calendar looks like, very similar to the current structure. We added a couple of days at the beginning. we need to have those extra days for our transition to Power School. When we go ahead and start at Power School, we'll have about 2 full days of training for our teachers on the grade book program and all the features of that, attendance and all those things. That'll just be a 1-year thing. We're going to need to compensate the teachers for that, but that'll be a part of the negotiations process. So I wouldn't anticipate that continuing after this year necessarily. A lot of the professional development days, for some reason we had them on Mondays this year, but and the preschool doesn't go on Friday. But when we take days off on Mondays, that's a day that the preschool is missing. Well, they have a minimum date that they need to meet. So we've tried to make all those days off as much as we can on Friday, so we don't have to add a bunch of Fridays that the preschoolers have to attend. So that's a slight difference. One thing, spring break is with Barton County, so it's the week of the 16th of March. And then we have 3 days scattered through here just to get some professional development every day. And December 11 is an example. Instead of dismissing at 1 like we are this year on those 3 days, we're going to start school at 10. Okay, so we'll have our professional development during the first 2 hours rather than the last 2 hours of the day. It is a challenge when we have junior high kids. We let out at 1. What do they do until practice time? We have kids wandering around. We also miss a lot due to activities in the afternoon, so there's junior high school especially, they have their schedule, so they're just missing the last 2 periods of the day. Well, we do that enough, adding these days makes that worse, so shifting that. We can also run a full schedule where it's condensed and they get all their class periods in during the day, so at least they see every teacher. So I can see as a parent, maybe that would be more difficult for daycare. Where if you find somebody at 1 o'clock, just for the rest of the day till you're off of work, well, it's different if I've got to drop them off at daycare and then get them to school at 10. And breakfast is a concern, but we're talking 3 days. So.
How many snow days do you typically build into the schedule?
We have about 5 days extra time built in. And when the days that we've had so far that we had a late start, we don't have to deduct those hours, so those count. Whether we start late due to weather or we close early due to weather, if we're in school, we get to count the whole day.
Okay.
So I'll bring that back for approval with any adjustments. Next meeting.
All right, item 4, Rec Commission information discussion item.
There's been enough questions, rumors, false statements about this Recreation Commission situation. I thought I'd review some of the facts with you, and if you had any questions. This memo I sent I posted this on our website. Basically just said information has come to light about possible discrepancies in the finances for the Recreation Commission. It's under investigation. The Sheriff's Department and County Attorney has the information. I don't even have all those details of what that is, but so I thought it was important we get public information out there. So I shared that with the City Council and in Hudson and St. John. It is important to note that we're just a taxing entity. We collect the taxes and we pass that on. That's our legal responsibility. So how is this Recreation Commission formed? That's what this resolution is. I have some documentation. I wasn't able to locate every bit of documentation. It's kind of scattered all over, but this resolution from 1981 created the Recreation Commission. So St. John City Council, USD 350 School Board, and Hudson City Council met in a joint meeting, passed this resolution to create the Recreation Commission. It was put to a vote. The voters approved it. So there's 1 mill. And then in '86, and this spells out how how the commission members are appointed by each body. They serve a 4-year term. Once a member is appointed, Sean is appointed by the city of Hudson. They're appointed to a 4-year term. If they don't like what Sean is doing and they want to remove him, they don't have the legal authority to do that. That appointment is for 4 years. Now, they could ask him, hey, why don't we have somebody else that would like to do it? Can you step down? Then that's fine. But to actually remove somebody, it has to be at the end of that 4-year term, if that makes sense. Spells out all the, how the funds come. In 1986, there was an additional 1 mil added. From what I understand, the school board took that action. The Recreation Commission said we want another mill. The school board adopted a resolution, published in the paper. It's subject to protest petition. At that time, if people didn't want that, they could have put a petition together to say we don't want that, put it to a vote. I don't believe that was done. It just increased. Same thing happened again in 1987. So that's how we ended up at 3 mills for the Recreation Commission. Now there's also a Recreation Commission employee benefit fund. So if you have a rec commission, state law says the Recreation Commission can levy up to 1 mil for recreation employee benefits. So retirement funds, health insurance, payroll taxes, and those things. So that's the additional 0.7 mils. So we have those 2 funds that we collect taxes for. So that's really how it all came to be. These pages show the state law about what all was covered there. And here's the terms and who's in each appointment. At the top, that's how it was started with the resolution. USD 350 appointed one member, and it was just a 1-year term, and then after that, 4 years. And our other appointee was a 4-year term, and so on. So that's how they came to be staggered like that. Any specifics on the investigation or any discrepancies or potential discrepancies? I'm careful to, I don't know that there's been wrongdoing. I can't say that. That's what an investigation is for. But, any questions, things that have come up from patrons to you that you need answered?
I thought your memo was well written. I've had a few people call and with appreciation that that's on the school website, kind of outlining how it works with the Rec Commission. So that's head off a lot of questions because it's always been, some people didn't understand how it worked and assumed it was under the school when actually it's not.
So you can tell people to just go to the website and it's right there on the front page, that memo, and there's some of those other documents that are on there. I've had nobody call and ask me, hey, what's happened? Then people want to know the specifics of what's going on and what was found, and I don't know that information, some of it. But I don't know what's fact there. And it may take a while to determine all the facts.
I want to address something, but it needs to be in an executive session.
Okay.
Well, any questions about the rec? Okay. Got some bids on carpet?
I don't. We'll skip that one. I don't have any bids.
Speak at the meeting.
Yeah. So we'll come back next month.
Ben not put in one?
Not a new one. Had one from a month or whenever she did that. But
Okay.
I contacted him, told him I needed it this week, so we'll try to nail it down before next meeting. so we can get
All
that
right.
going.
We'll move on to item number 6, counselor position.
Right now, our setup is Mrs. Hacker is a half-time counselor for grade 7-12, half-time social studies teacher. And then Mrs. Volker is our elementary counselor. She's here in the afternoons. Stafford is looking at adding a full-time counseling position. So what that would do is potentially take Mrs. Volker away from us. You know, that would change our shared staff relationship for that position. Leaving us with, if we wanted to keep things the same way, we would have to hire a half-time person. Or if they hired somebody different for that position, then we could have Mrs. Volker half-time. Well, she needs a full-time job currently, or would want one, I'm sure. So that's kind of forcing our hand on what we need to do in that regard. I don't have a specific recommendation, but we're leaning toward recommending adding that as a full-time position. We would change it a little bit, make it more of a K-12 counselor, where that person could do, focus more on the social, emotional needs of the kids from kindergarten through, all the way through. She's pretty good with that. Wendy's strength is more with the career and guidance counseling, where she could focus more on those things. A good example of things that the ball gets dropped with, attendance, phone calls, and follow-up and truancy, in my office especially, but also in Blaine. Having somebody else there that could help us be on top of those things, and the testing, we would have the needs for that. How would we pay for that? Well, we've reduced Lisa Cornwell, our nursing contract back, so there's room in the budget for that. I don't foresee Lisa coming back full-time. I'd like to keep that as a part, less than full-time position. You have any questions about that? Concerns, comments?
Do most schools have a full-time counselor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we, when I was at Burton, we had a K-12 counselor, just one full-time. We had quite a bit fewer kids, but 1.5 counselors would be about right for our size.
Okay.
We're much bigger. We probably have one for the upper grades and one for the lower grades. A lot of districts are moving to social worker. Where, a lot of the problems we deal with, attendance, behaviors, a lot of that is home situations, and having somebody to go work with the parents is a big deal. So we're seeing a lot more of that around the state of schools hiring, not necessarily a counselor, but more of a family counselor, social worker to help with those issues.
I would say too, that with Lisa getting back half-time, she's also our CTE, Career Tech Ed Coordinator, and some of that would shift to Wendy if we could, free up some of the counseling time. So Wendy would be college and career ready stuff, and the Career Tech Ed kind of go-to person and work with scheduling with me, so.
And I would guess that the way it would work out if we would hire Mrs. Volker here, and they would find their own. I think she would like to be here. Family's here, so.
Does she like her family much?
All the time, but we won't say that.
Her oldest is her favorite.
She told me some of them.
Should be okay with going K-12 all the way up.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think we'd create the position and then fill it with the appropriate personnel. It would probably be a nice transition.
that would also give a very consistent social emotional program all the way through. That helps a lot.
You'll have more of a recommendation in March.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, any other discussion? on that item? Move on to item number 7, additional item, activity account for the shop club.
Right now, we've made some of these license plates. This is one for Little River. I've just put out to our area superintendent's group and all our league schools that if you'd like some samples, we'd be glad to make some for you. And gave some free samples, and we've already got an order from Ellenwood for 30 of them. And so we've got to have a way to account for that money without having to come through district funds, and they want to keep that for their program and what they want to do, purchase equipment, or maybe if some kids, put some work into this, they can't afford their wood project, that maybe they can work and build some of those and pay off their wood project or something like that. So that money would stay in there. So requires board approval to create an account line in the activity fund. So you do have an additional agenda item on your screen there. So I've got a recommendation for a motion there if there's no questions or comments.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve adding an activity account for the shop club.
Second.
Moved and seconded, the board approve adding an activity account for the shop club. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried, 6-0. Okay, on to communications, board member activities and reports. Debbie?
Not much to report on the special ed co-op. We are meeting next week to review the director's contract and her evaluation. And they also got me this nice mug. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention was that I was asked to help moderate at the Scholar Bowl. And I really think that's cool. Maxville brought a ton of people. St. John had 2. So we need to work on more parents coming. We didn't make it into the top 4, but it was still a good meet.
Well, good. So you're on the moderation circuit?
Yeah, and I have to have a lesson in how to pronounce some of the names and how to say some of the math formulas beforehand, but because I'm a moderator.
That'll take a little practice.
Tim Spare was my judge, and when it came to the math things, there were times I would just look at him and say, it's yours.
Yeah.
Factors and powers and all of that stuff. Normally Felicia writes it out to the side how to say it, but there were a couple of them that she didn't do that. And those darn Greeks, they confused me. It's fun, and the kids really, it amazes me some of the things they know.
Right?
Okay, thank you. Fair?
No, nothing.
Sean?
Nothing.
Vance?
I want to congratulate the junior high girls on their tournament win for the CPL. And I want to thank Mr. White for helping put on the dance, the junior high dance over the weekend. And I think the kids really appreciated it and had a good time.
They were good, it was fun. They didn't listen to my music though, did they?
No, I enjoyed it.
I offered.
All right. Derek?
Helped judge the robotics thing. It was interesting. It was pretty cool. Different group of students there working as teams, so it was good to see.
How did it come out?
I had to go before the finals, so. But no, there was a lot of teams there. It was impressive.
Mays and Heston.
Mays and Heston, huh?
Yeah, they,
They were impressive.
yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Good. Nothing from me. Administrative reports tonight. Mr. White?
Okay, I gave you guys a printout of my report. since it's not what Josh sent out, I didn't get it to him in time, but, I talked to you guys earlier, every junior in the state of Kansas is supposed to have the opportunity to take the ACT for free. We will be administering that to our juniors on February 20th. And then on the 21st, we will do Kansas Work Keys, which is more geared toward career and technical ed. All juniors and seniors will get to test that. This is the last year that the seniors get to be included in that group. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna split them up into 2 groups, and we'll test part of them in the morning, part of them in the afternoon. But Kim and Wendy have really been working on that, trying to get that arranged. We also, I think I told you last month in my little video presentation that we have NAEP testing, which is not our choice, it's just, they decide what schools get to be involved in that, and we were the chosen ones. So on the 22nd, so we have 3 days in a row of testing with our students. On the 22nd, our 8th graders will be testing in reading and math. And I don't have this on the report here, but we also have pretty much our state assessment schedule for, it opens March 11th, which happens to be our spring break, and closes the end of April. We'll test all 7th, 8th, and 10th graders in English and math, and 8th and 11th in science, and we have that calendar worked out. I was gonna point out, like Derek said, I thought the robotics tournament was a huge success. Big shout out to Miss Safekeys for getting everything lined up with that and getting the help that she needed. And to watch those kids, they have to work together with another robot they've never seen before. And they have to be on a team and try and accomplish a goal. And so watching those kids talk to each other about what's your strength, what's our strength, and come up with that strategy was really cool. I had never been to a robotics tournament, couldn't even imagine what it was like, but it gave me a good idea. And you see a lot of creativity and problem solving going on in a short period of time, and you do see a lot of kids who normally wouldn't be involved in a team activity that are working as a team with somebody. So I hope we can continue to keep that going. Middle school basketball, back-to-back champions for our girls. That was already mentioned. I think our middle school Scholars Bowl has 17 participants, which is a pretty good number. They're going tonight, and we're taking 2 and 3 teams to different places sometimes. I'm gonna probably be driving next week while we kind of split off. Pretty awesome to have that many.
And they won the other day? They won the...
Yeah, they went to Otis and they swept, the varsity team swept, and the junior varsity team went 3 and 2, I think. So it's a very good representation. And I was told by people from Otis that our kids were just exceptional. That, you know, they helped pick up stuff and they were very polite and stuff. So that's a big shout out to them and to Mr. Bauer for, you know, leading that. I'm gonna have to check on this number for sure. We did have 4 students who were wrestling at Stafford. That may be back to 3 because of eligibility issues. But like today, we had 2 that didn't go wrestling because they're also on Scholars Bowl. So, but we have a couple kids that are getting an opportunity to do something that we can't offer them. So I know they're appreciative of being able to do that. Get ready for regional basketball next week. Little River is our region. Our boys will either not play a game. If we're seeded number 1, we won't have a first round game. If we're seeded number 2, we will we'll host that week. And that will depend on what Little River does tomorrow. We're tied with Little River, I believe. And if Little River loses, we'll be seeded number 1. And we'll have a bye in the first round. If Little River wins, I think we flip a coin because we haven't played each other. So that'll just be coming up. Our girls will likely be traveling somewhere to compete at another school in the first round. February 24th, we'll have our new NHS members inducted. That's a Sunday at about, I think it's at 2 o'clock. And then on February 27th, we have our high school music festival. which is just going to be all kinds of talent. Come up and see what's going on.
Is that here?
The other day, Mother Nature allowed us to test drive our 2-hour delay schedule. I thought it worked really well. We had a couple teachers who had to make some very minor adjustments to release time to go to lunch, but it worked out super. Really went off without a hitch, I think. Josh, did you see anything that?
No.
And so that kind of tells us for next year, if we do the early or the late start rather than the early dismissal, we'll have a workable schedule. Finished up teacher evaluations. That's kind of been something that takes a lot more time than what you would think. We had our poverty simulation last month. I've had a ton of feedback from teachers. It's very positive about that, and people who are veterans in the field that said that's the best PD I've ever been to. So money well spent on that. And I think we're all looking forward to going and seeing Ruby Payne, who kind of continues that talk. And then we have Rebecca come back in March. And so that's really something that I think is valuable to us to look at.
Still dealing drugs.
I am not. I was just selling sweet and low that one day.
It was some pretty heavy stuff, though. He got some people addicted, then he disappeared, and they didn't know how to get money.
Yeah, we did it in here, and
Yeah.
I was selling the sweet and low, and like I said, I got them addicted, and then she said, you need to go out, go find something to do for a while. So I came in here, and pretty soon people were texting me from in there, where are you at?
What, and I'm gonna tell you what was really great about that simulation as I watched it was we had people knowing that it was a simulation, but experienced true frustration and almost anxiety. I mean, and it was the real thing. Wouldn't you say, Kristen?
Yeah.
Because they're trying to win, and that's, the point was, this is how people feel, and this is why they turn to selling drugs for somebody or doing immoral things maybe, and that's how poverty affects our students every day. And we do have that issue here in the community, so. The awareness is good. I'll be going to Manhattan tomorrow for Career and Technical Ed Conference. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to go do that. Don't appreciate the drive, but I appreciate the opportunity. And one last thing on there, we had our first little party for our kids who didn't have any tardies or unexcused absences during January. Out of 150 kids, 100 qualified, and we gave them ice cream today at the end of the day. I think the kids really enjoyed it. We have a team of teachers who are kind of on the committee heading that up. Some of them had the idea of including some students, so we invited 6 students into that committee, and they're all in the high school. We kind of left the middle school, junior high out for that, but those high school kids came up with some great ideas, and kind of appreciated that we were even thinking about recognizing that they're there when they're supposed to be. So look forward to some more monthly rewards type stuff.
What was the percentage on that, chance? Kids that were perfect?
66.7. So, yeah, 150, is that right? 150, and we had 100 there, yeah, 66.7. So, we did have a few that were gone to Scholars Bowl tonight that didn't get to participate. I'm going to print a coupon for them to have an ice cream cone at the concession stand on Friday, so that they don't miss out because of being involved in an activity. If they're gone because of an absence, too bad, but if they're gone for school activity representing us, I'll make sure they're rewarded. But anyway, that's, hopefully I don't know if it'll make a difference, but hopefully it lets the kids know that I appreciate them, the ones that are where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. Okay, any questions over all of that? A lot going on right now.
Thank you, Mr. White.
You bet.
Mr. Meyer?
Blaine mentioned it already, about the shared staff development. We have Ruby Payne, who's an internationally known author and speaker at Lions on Monday. This is part of our, she writes about poverty and how to work with kids that live in impoverished homes and neighborhoods. This is Lions, Little River, Great Bend, Stafford. We have a lot of I don't think Stafford's participating this year, but the area superintendents would get together and try to plan something big like this, where we wouldn't be able to get a speaker like that in here, because it's expensive. But a lot of this training with poverty leading to resilience and hoping to overcome that cycle of poverty is what we're after. It's a tough cycle to overcome, but already mentioned robotics tournaments. Our elementary, they had gone to a tournament, and then we've got one coming up. We had 2 teams qualify for the state tournament, so they're going to be going to that here in a couple of weeks. We've got 2 teams doing that. Our 5th graders have started into that now, so it's a fun time. Our robotics program at the high school is going to be okay. Mrs. Seeke's leaving. We've got somebody to fill that spot, so good news there. I'll talk to you about that here in a bit. But, our education systems accreditation, we've been working on our district improvement goals. We're focused on relationships and connections with family. We've been doing a lot of work with that, even with our poverty professional development. And then we've kind of shifted our focus away from goal being professional development to focus on the social and emotional needs of our kids. You know, we have increasing populations where tough homes and behavior problems that are tough to deal with, and suicide is always a concern. Thank God we haven't had to cross that bridge yet, but that's one of those issues we need to stay on top of. So that's our focus for our improvement goals. We're going to meet with our site council on Wednesday about this and some other things. Preschool screening's coming up March 8th. Try to get that information in the paper. Some legislative items. Crisis drills has been a concern. Trying to get done all those crisis drills in 1 year. There's just too many. There's a recommendation from the fire marshal's office to reduce that to 9 total. So really just 1 drill a month, which we did in the past, 1 fire drill a month. So it'd be 3 or 4 fire drills, and I think 2 or 3 tornado drills, and then 3 or 4 crisis drills, and we get to decide what those crisis drills are. So hopefully they get that figured out. I don't know about anything on a constitutional amendment. It's still talk out there about that potential to remove school funding from our Constitution. Funding, the governor has put forth a recommendation to basically what the state board has recommended is adjust that for inflation. That would mean putting the base state aid at $4,436 next year. And then it would increase from there. Keep in mind 2008-2009 school year base data was $4,400. So we're a long ways away from catching up. Here, to give you an idea, the governor's recommendation, might be hard to see back there, but 2019 is this year, and then the next 4 years increase for inflation. So there was already increases built in, but a lot of the increases would just be eaten up by increasing costs. So it looks significant there. However, when you figure in inflation, this would adjust for inflation. You know, here's 2009, we're even clear out to 2023. We're still behind inflation during that time. So just depending on how you look at it, just dollar for dollar, we're going to increase for sure, but we've still got catching up to do, and we see that with our teacher salaries. We've got catching up to do there, and our classified staff for sure. So all of our increases went to salaries. You know, every dollar we spent more in salary increases this year than we got in additional funding. So if the recommendation would go through next year, we would see an additional $120,000 roughly, maybe not quite that much. But right now, as the current law stands, we would stand to see about $40,000 more. So this would be an additional $80,000. How they pay for it, I don't know. That's up to them. That's not my job. There is a bill in the works on reducing taxes. which would reduce revenue further in our state and create some problems back to 2012, similar to that. I don't know where that would go. There is some talk of grading schools rather than just accrediting, that there would be a system in place to give schools, every single school, not just school district, but a grade, A through F, just like on your grade card. I'm very concerned about that because it's pretty arbitrary. They point to Arizona as one of the states that does that, our education system is much better than Arizona's on every measure. We do a lot better than Arizona. Florida also is one of those. So that concerns me. Seems very simple that you say, well, yeah, I want to know how my kid's school is. And do we want to focus just on math and reading scores, or how are we gonna grade them? So that's concerning. Boiler replacement, I think we're to the point where we just need to replace those boilers and move on. I'm gonna work on getting bids. We had it in our capital improvements plan that next year we'd replace one, and then the following year replace one, and then the following year replace another one, and then we'd be done. I'm concerned about upkeep of our old stuff during that time. So I think we would be money ahead and just finance that for 3 years. We're still paying for it over 3 years, but we get all new equipment installed and we're done with it. I'm afraid that maintenance cost over that time will be much more than the interest anyway. Plus, if we would be left with an obsolete boiler, or one that would be condemned, we'd have to rush to find a solution. So I think we'd be better off. So I'll work on getting bids between now and next meeting, if we can get that done this summer. Same thing with our gym floor refinishing. We've got a committee together, some kids and our coaches and PE teachers, looking at maybe some artwork designs for the gym floors. That's still in our budget to do this summer. It's long overdue, so we'll work on getting that design together and then get that out for bids. So look for that hopefully next month. We'll be attending some recruiting fairs in Bethany College and Hayes.
Northwestern.
Northwest Oklahoma State. We'll send our resident Okie down there to see if we can recruit some from out of state. So we may have our positions filled before that time, but it's still important to go. Elisa and I attended a meeting with our South Central Community Foundation folks. There's I don't expect you to read through this, but you can pass it around real quick. Greystone Consulting is who the South Central Community Foundation has hired to manage their funds. Previously, it was just a group of their investment board that they would get together and determine what to do with the money, how to invest those funds. So they would periodically make adjustments. So this shouldn't change our fee structure, or won't change our fee structure with them. We still pay them the fees that we normally do. But we'll see less volatility. They'll be looking at that every day, moving money around as needed. Still with guidance from that investment board, but I think we'll see better returns and less volatility, less wild swings.
Do they have a new director?
They do. Becky Pribble was the director, and I think just maybe this month, or the beginning of the year, maybe in January. Holly, I can't think of her last name.
Okay,
She was the assistant executive director.
okay.
So they're real good to work with, so they invited us down to go through that because we're one of the bigger accounts with them. So they said a lot of things that were over my head, but going back to my Series 7 exam days, I don't remember all that stuff. Coming up here at the end of the month, I'll be going to Kansas City for the Kansas Missouri Superintendent Forum, Leadership Forum. So that's always a great opportunity to learn from some great people. And that's all I had on my report.
Do we have new kids in school? Okay.
We've had, I haven't looked where we're at, we've lost a few. At one point, we were up 17. That was since count day. That was counting those that had moved out, moved in, which is huge.
I saw
7%.
the new police officer that was hired had 3 kids, and I didn't know whether they had already moved to town and started school.
I don't think I can really answer that in the open session.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meyer.
Yep.
Executive session this evening.
Yeah, I've got a few contract issues to discuss. I'd suggest start with 10 minutes and see where we need to go.
Okay. To include you and
And Mr. White?
Mr. White. All right,
Mr. President, I move the board go into executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to an elected personnel exception under KOMA with Mr. White to be included, and we return to open session at 7 o'clock in this room.
Second.
move and second that the board go into executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under KOMA with Mr. White and Mr. Meyer to be included, and we return to open session at 7 p.m. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried 6-0. All right, we're back in open session. Mr. Meyer, you have some recommendations?
I do. I have a recommendation to approve rolling over Mr. White's 2-year contract, which is shown on pages 48 and 49.
Entertain a motion?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the 2-year contract for Blaine White as presented.
Second.
So moved and seconded, the board approve the 2-year contract for Blaine White as presented. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried 6-0. Recommendation?
I have a letter of resignation from Mrs. Saylor Seefkes. I would recommend that the board approve her resignation effective at the end of the school year.
Mr. President, I move that the board accept Andrea Saylor-Seefke's resignation.
Second.
It's moved and seconded, the board approve, accept Andrea Seepke's resignation effective at the end of the school year. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried 6-0. Other?
I have a contract here for Megan Farrell for 1920 school year to be a high school math teacher. I recommend the board approve that contract.
Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the contract for Megan Farrell as the math teacher for 2019-20 school year.
Second.
It's moved and seconded, the board approve a contract for Megan Farrell as the 2019-20 math teacher. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried 6-0. Future agenda items, Mr. Meyer.
One of the things we talked about today, the calendar, the counselor, any changes to our curriculum. We might look at our technology plan and an update on our school fleet of vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
And then those bids we talked about.
Anything else? Entertain a motion for adjournment?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved second, we adjourn. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 6-0. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.